And I would like to call to the meeting of the 2025 River Valleys Unified School District Annual Meeting to order. The notice reads, the legal voters of the towns of Dover and Wardsboro, Vermont are hereby notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17 VSA Section 2655, they are to meet at the Wardsboro Town Hall, 71 Main Street, Wardsboro, Vermont, on Tuesday, April 29th at 7 p.m. to act upon the following articles. Article 13 to be voted by Australian ballot for the election of board members. And we have the results of the elections were held yesterday, the ballots were counted, and Andy is going to give us the results of the election.
Hi folks. So, first of all, we had a contested race this year, amazingly enough, in Dover. And I'd like to thank both folks who threw their hats in the ring. It's a huge service to us, giving us a choice. It's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself out there like that. And I, for one, as your clerk, really appreciate that effort on behalf of both of those folks. So, in Dover, Meredith Block received 113 votes. And Mark Schauber received 36 votes. So congratulations. These are the vote totals for both towns combined, which is how we vote at the River Valleys. We had one write-in for Tommy Oakley. In Wardsboro, Ely Porter received 133 votes. Congratulations, Ely. Michaela Quinn received a write-in vote, and Tommy Oakley received another write-in vote.
Thank you. Before we get started on the motions that are going to come to the floor, I just want to explain a couple of things. If you make a motion or second it, typically that means
like literally weeks before the meeting.
you will have the opportunity to speak first and second on that article. However, you would like to ask that the board be given the opportunity to address the motion, or to address the article prior to discussion from the floor, because they may wish to explain certain things about it. Is there anyone here who is not a voter in Wardsboro or Dover? Is there anyone of voting age who is not a voter in Dover or Wilmington? Dover or Wardsboro, pardon me, I apologize. Tired girl. All right, so since no one has raised their hands, I'm going to assume that no one here from outside these two towns is going to raise their hand and ask to speak from the floor. If someone arrives and wants to do that, they have to receive permission from the voters before they can address the group. All right, so the books are sitting. We have extra of the book, and that's on the stairwell going up for anyone who did not have one brought, did not bring one yet. All right, we'll go to Article 1. To elect a moderator to serve for fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Is there a motion from the floor to nominate someone for that position? I also would like to ask everyone, when you're called on, to please say your name before you start speaking, just in case I don't know who you are, or I'm embarrassed to admit I don't know who you are.
Jerry Gullett. I'd like to nominate Rich Warner to be moderator for July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026.
I'm going to decline that. It's not appropriate.
Sorry?
I have to decline because it's not appropriate for the member of the board to be the moderator.
Oh,
It's not just moderator.
It's not board chair, that's a different. Oh, Andy?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Sarah Shippey.
And you all accept the nomination. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that, Jeremy Schroeder.
Jeremy, all right. Are there any other nominations? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Thank you very much. The second part of that is to set a stipend of $200 per meeting for the moderator. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'd like to move that we set a stipend of $200 for the moderator.
Per meeting or for the year?
For 1 year.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion?
In the book, Marlene McLean. In the book, it says a stipend of $200 per meeting for the moderator.
Well, that was the suggested motion, but the motion was made as per year and was seconded. So that's fine. Yes?
So I apologize. I had on my sheet of paper that it did not say 1 year. I just want to make sure on the actual warning is the one in the book. If you give me just a second.
Mike's got it.
Yes, that's correct. It was on the actual warning per meeting.
Right.
Can I make a friendly amendment to my motion?
Yes, that is permitted.
Excellent.
And I'll accept that as a second.
Okay, so the motion is to set a stipend of $200 per meeting for the moderator.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to talk on the article? Any discussion? Seeing no hands. All in favor of setting a stipend of $200 per meeting for the moderator, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I see no opposition, the motion carries. Article 2, to elect a clerk to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Would someone like to bring a nomination to the floor for that position?
Marco Salini Dover, I'd like to nominate Andy McLean.
Andy, would you accept that nomination?
Sure.
All right, is there a second?
Jeremy Strauss seconds that.
Jeremy is our second. All right, is there anyone else who would like, any other nominations for that position? Is there any discussion on the nomination? All right, all in favor of Andy McLean as clerk for the fiscal year of July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear no opposition, the motion carries. Article 2B, to set a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk. Would someone like to move that to the floor?
So moved.
I'm going to actually ask him to say that.
Oh. I move to set a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk.
And would you state your name for the record?
Alan Block.
Thank you, Alan.
Jeremy Strauss second.
Jeremy seconds again.
Make it easy.
Would anyone like to discuss this motion? All right. Seeing nothing, all in favor of a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear no opposition, the motion carries. Article 2, Section C, to set a stipend of $400. We already did.
I'm sorry. No, see,
Yeah. To set aside $400 for an assistant clerk to be appointed and duties used at the discretion of the clerk. Would someone like to move that to the floor, please?
I would like to move to set a stipend of $400 for an assistant clerk to be appointed and duties used at the discretion of the clerk.
I'll second that.
Jeremy's right there. All right.
If I could just, I'd like to address this one because this is a little out of the ordinary from what you usually see. Since we became a unified district, we have 2 towns. It used to be really easy when you're a single town because Andy knew everybody, but Andy doesn't know everybody in Wardsboro yet. And we rely on Michelle, or the previous town clerk in Wardsboro. And Andy just felt that he does need them because our elections are not at the same time as town meeting, and there's a lot of work he needs her. from her, and also when we have the annual meeting, Andy would know if somebody was a voter from Dover or Wardsboro or not. So Andy requested this a couple of years ago. It's becoming a standard article, and pretty soon we won't have to explain it, but I just wanted, and the terminology may be a little off because he doesn't use her, he assists her, so we'll have to fix that next year. But we would ask that you pass this.
I have a question.
Yes.
Jerry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Who appoints the assistant clerk? The clerk?
That would be Andy.
I don't know about him. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, the assistant clerk is appointed by the clerk, who you have elected as the Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question or comment on this? All right, seeing none. All right, Article 2C, to set a stipend of $400 for an assistant clerk to be appointed and duties used at the discretion of the clerk. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing opposition, the motion carries. Article 3, to elect a treasurer to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Would someone like to nominate?
I would like to nominate Marco Tellini.
All right, do I have a second to that nomination?
Jeremy Schroff, I'll second that.
All right, Jeremy, you're gonna have to play. Marco, would you serve if elected?
I will serve,
Thank you.
yes.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any questions or any points of discussion people would like to cover before we vote?
I'm Jan Howell from Wardsboro.
I'm sorry, you're very far away.
Jan Howell.
Thank you.
I haven't heard anybody speak up, but are these salaries fair? That's what I'd like to know.
I'm gonna ask the
Not
board
as
chair
much.
that.
So we do, and they've been the same for several years. The reason, like the stipend for the moderator is only $200 per meeting, because usually it's one meeting a year. We did this year ask the moderator to moderate the required informational meeting. So maybe we should up her a little next year. But these folks are year round, so when we have an issue on the articles of agreement, when we have an issue on something happening, if we have to appoint a member during the year, we do have to go to our clerk, and we use him a lot. And our treasurer is required, the money actually comes in through the town, so our treasurer is required to bring the money in. He has to give the money to the central office that has a business office that pays the bills. He keeps track of our checks and our money and makes sure that nobody absconds with it, along with the people from central office. So it's really only $200 a month. It's not a huge amount of money, and we feel it's pretty appropriate for the work that they do. It's not a full-time job, but at times, like this week, it was a full-time job for Andy for the last 2 days. He had to sit at the town office all day, at the town hall to do the election. But then it's 1 or 2 elections a year possibly. So we do think it's appropriate, and the board does support it. That's why we put it into the articles.
Did you want to comment that?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, are there any other comments? All right, so now we're going to vote on set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer.
I think we have to elect.
We haven't elected him. I apologize, I wrote his name down. Thought I already got him the job. All right, are there any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no opposition, Marco's been elected. And now, Article 3B, to set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer. Would like to move that to the floor.
I'll do it, Randy Johnson, to set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer.
Thank you. And a second?
Second it.
Marlene.
Thanks,
Marlene. There you go. All right. Is there any other comment or questions on this article before you move it? All right. To set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no opposition, the motion carries. I'm going to step out of line here a little. Does anybody know if we can make these lights brighter? Because it's dark. Does anybody know, or is this as bright as they get?
No, they get right.
You're gonna see him tomorrow.
They get brighter as we get them.
Oh, the next week is right, because I'm pretty damn. All right, Article 4. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set the annual stipend for school directors at $2,500 and for the chair at $3,000? Would someone like to move that to the floor, please?
I'll move that.
Again, Randy Johnson, shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual stipend for the school directors at $2,500 and for the chair at $3,000.
Second.
Second is Ellen Law. All right, is there any discussion? Anyone have any questions?
Can you tell me, I know what the chairman of the school district does, but what does the director do?
These are your members.
Yeah,
They're the board members.
I'm sorry?
The board members.
I understand that, but what are they? Oh, they're just board members.
They're just board members?
Well, what are their responsibilities? I know what he does, but what is your responsibility as director?
You elect the board every year.
Right.
Every year, we have an election, we have 3 from each town. We are responsible for working with curriculum, working with the superintendent's office to run the schools. When expenditures, we prepare the town report, we work with the budget, we
Right.
present the budget. It's a group effort, and we all put in a lot of time. As chair, I don't get involved a lot with the hiring stuff, but we have board members that are always available when it's time to hire people. Spotlight's on
You're in the
us.
spotlight.
And, some years, a couple years ago, we had some staffing issues, and we were meeting every Monday.
Okay.
Now it's even worse.
So basically, what you're telling me is that your job, the director's job, the Board of Education chairman's job is to meet with and discuss the budget
We're
with the principals.
the citizens'
Okay.
representative to the education in our
Right.
district.
Similar to this.
Yeah, it's the like board as to the town, we're to
I
the
get it.
schools.
Thank you.
Richard, to add something. So, in the past, we talked about the stipend being important to make sure that everyone is able to serve on the school board. There are some parents or single parents that might need childcare in order to serve, so making sure that they are able to.
During Act 60, when it first came out, the boards forwent the pay because it was such a huge tax increase. And what Laura brought up was a big point of contention amongst the voters, and the voters actually voted us the original amount. So we don't want to, we do put a lot of time and effort in. If you figured it out per hour, probably nobody would want to do it. Meredith will figure that out pretty quick, probably. I think Eli's still got a little time yet. He's still in his honeymoon period.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments from the floor? All right. Hearing none. Article 4, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set the annual stipend for school directors at $2,500 and for the chair at $3,000? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Article 5, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred? Who would like to move that to the floor? I'm going to be calling these people.
Sure. Scott Sally. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred?
And could I have a second?
Second. Ed Buck.
Meredith, I'll second. Thank you.
So basically, there's not a lot of mileage spent. Most of it, some of the staff gets mileage, but that's as per their contract. This is really more for the board members and the board, and this is the same as the staff has in their contract. So if the board, it's not like to come to here, but if the board members had to go to a training somewhere, they can put in for mileage. I'm not sure if anybody's put in for mileage in the last 2 or 3 years, but it is something that we have to do just in case. I try to get mileage to go to Hawaii once in February, but I found out that you can't use airline mileage, so.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments? All right. Article 5, 5, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve mileage reimbursement at the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which the mileage occurred? All agree, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition, the motion carries. Article 6, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to move any surplus from the 2024-2025 budget into the general reserve fund to be reserved for a future use as approved by the voters? Could someone move that to the floor, please?
Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to move any surplus from the 2024-25 budget into the general reserve fund to be reserved for future use as approved by the voters?
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anyone who would second that motion?
I'll second it. Molly.
So this article, we've been doing this in Dover since Act 60, and we've been doing it for River Valley since we've been a district. So, you know, we have to, every year, we try to guess how many students are gonna come and how many are gonna go to secondary school and which school they're gonna go to and whether new people move in or out. So we've run a surplus almost every year. This year, we're projected to run about a $250,000 surplus, but that could change overnight. A family could move in with 10 secondary students, and for the last, month and a half of school, that could be down to 200,000. Especially during COVID, we actually came very close to almost going into deficit because we wound up with a whole bunch of people moving into town and had a lot of tuition expense. If you look on page 25, you'll see our fund balance. And what we did several years ago is we went back to some specific reserves. There's a building reserve. As you go down through, it's the top page 25, where it starts off with food program. There's some reserve money in the food program. There is about $1,400,000 in the reserve fund. That's a general reserve fund where we're asking you to put money into. But in later articles, you're going to see we're going to ask you to take almost $1 million out, $400,000 for the building, about $500,000. $400,000 for the building fund, $20,000 for transportation, and $250 to help offset the increase in taxes. And what we do is, since we don't know what the balance is, and we won't until the audit's done at the end of August, we just want to move that money right in because several years ago, the legislature in Montpelier was looking at saying, that's our money. If you don't spend it all, we want it back. Well, we've already raised it and paid taxes, so by us doing this now, we're going to put it into that general reserve fund, and then next year we're going to say to you, this is what we want to do with it. It doesn't mean that we're just going to go spend it without your permission, but we want to just have it in a reserve fund and not just leaving it there as fund balance to be maybe globbed onto by somebody else. So we recommend that you approve this article.
So, does anyone have any questions or comments on this article? All right. Article 6, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to move any surplus from the 2024-2025 budget into the general reserve fund to be reserved for a future use as approved by the voters? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Article 7, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $28,972, which is the Burton Sending School tuition for the 2025-2026 school year? Would someone like to move that to the floor?
I'll move it. Alan Block. I move that the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $21,972, the Burton Sending School tuition rate for the 2025-26 school year.
I may have a second for that.
I'll second. Rebecca McGrail.
So if you go to page 23 in your book, we actually have, and these are just guesses, we try to anticipate where current sixth graders are going to go next year. We look at if they have siblings or where, we try to kind of guess where people are going to go again. It's not an exact science. And the Burton sending school rate, several years ago, both Dover and Wardsboro had approved a sending school rate from Burton, which means that we have a kind of an agreement with Burton that Burton won't turn away any of our students, and that, but we will pay a certain rate, and then parents won't have to pay a difference. Burton sometimes, depending on how much the towns pay for tuition, there may be a difference between their tuition and what's actually given as the statewide average tuition. I want to just clarify a couple things, because there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of people get very nervous about this every year, and I'm hoping eventually we'll get this, one other real quick thing. For a while, Dover and Wardsboro, before we were combined, were just voting for Burton. Back about 10 or 12 years ago, we were petitioned by a resident of Dover to make that rate for all secondary schools. So it wasn't just if you went to Burton. So it's up to. So if you're going to a private school, the ABC private school, and their tuition rate is $19,000, that's all we're going to pay. But if their tuition rate is $25,000, we'll pay up to that $21,972. So the other thing is we do this every year because we're required by law. So those of you that know the titles, Title 16 is education, and Vermont Statute Section 824, subsection C, says that the district shall pay an amount not to exceed the average announced tuition of Vermont Union High Schools for the year of attendance for its students enrolled in an improved independent school not functioning as Vermont Career Technical Center, or any amount approved by the electorate at an annual or special meeting. So we agreed in Dover, Wardsboro agreed, and then we carried it forth with River Valleys that as long as it gets voted in every year, we will continue to put it on as a special article, but it does have to be a special article. This group, or you folks, can't say that we're not going to pay tuition. This is just about how much tuition we're going to pay. If you defeat this article, we'll pay the statewide average, which is around $20,840, or we will pay the tuition to whatever public high school you want to send your child to in the state of Vermont. So Burlington High School's and they're not, they're lower, but let's just say they were $28,000 and you want to send your child to Burlington High School, we would pay that amount. Does that make sense to everybody? So there's always questions about what does the tuition or the sending school rate with Burton mean? And the headmaster, Mark, who's been there since we've been dealing with Burton, always comes in. Unfortunately, he's not a member, he's not a resident over Wardsboro. He wasn't in earlier, he came in after we started the meeting. So if you want to ask him any questions, we just have to ask Sarah, or Sarah will ask you your permission. But I think that pretty much covers the board's side of it. And if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them, or if you want to hear from Mark.
All right, so is there consensus, or are there people on the floor who would like to be able to ask questions of the headmaster at Burton? Okay. Are there any other questions, or actually we should go to Alan first. Are there any other questions or comments that you have? Okay. And Rebecca, you were the second. Do you have any? All right. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question or make a comment on this article?
I have a question, and it was answered to me, but some people may not know. We are a public school system, and I know that we have to send kids out of the district to another school.
I'm going to ask you to speak a little louder, because I think
Okay.
people who are behind you are going to have a hard time
All right.
hearing you.
Sorry, I'll stand over here.
You can stand for it.
We're a public school system, and I was just wondering, even though it was answered, I thought that maybe some of you don't know the answer to the question, and I asked it at the meeting last week. We are a public school system, and I feel that we should be sending our kids to public school. I don't think that we should be sending kids, giving money to parents to send their children to private school. And I'm just wondering how, because years ago we didn't do that, so how did that happen? Can you explain that?
I'm actually going to correct you, Jerry, because that wasn't answered last meeting.
Okay.
We do not have a middle school or a high school.
Right.
There's been discussions in the past. Dover at one time was looking to combine with Leland and Gray back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. We don't sponsor, we don't have a public high school or a public middle school. So we are what is called a tuitioning town, which is very legal, and there's a lot of towns like this. Marlboro is one too, but Marlboro doesn't tuition until 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So we don't have a public school. We pay tuition. It's the parents' choice where they send their children, and we can't control that. We can't say you can't send your child to Burton. We can't say you have to send them anywhere. The electorate, you folks, could petition the board, or we could suggest that maybe we align with the public high school, but that would take a vote. That's nothing the board can do. That's something that the voters would have to approve, because that changes the structure of our district. The legislature may change that, or, you know, there's been bills before the legislature that say you can only go to public schools. There's been bills that say a district has to name three. No, they have to name 3 schools that they pay tuition to, but that hasn't happened yet. But it may happen. I don't know. If I could predict the future, I always say I wouldn't be here. You know, I'd make millions on the futures market, probably be in some tropical island. But for right now, the only thing you get to vote on is you get to vote, do you want to pay that extra bit of money over the statewide average tuition to wherever a parent wants to send their child? You're not voting on whether or not we pay tuition to public or private schools, because you don't have that choice. We're not voting that you pay tuition or not pay tuition. You don't have that choice. The only thing you're voting on right now is, do you want to pay that Burton sending school rate of
21,972.
I get my numbers mixed up all the way. That's all we're voting on. If you vote no, people can still send their students to Burton, any private school that's approved or accepted by the state. You haven't stopped that. So your decision is, are you going to give that extra to be the Burton sending rate that means Burton will accept all our students, and anybody who wants to go to any other private school, that's the rate. And I hope that's pretty clear, because that's been, yeah, it's $1,132 difference is you're voting for that extra. Again, you know, we've argued this back and forth several times where, you know, well, if we didn't do that, we'd say there's 100 secondary students, we would save $100,000. But it really doesn't work that way, because, hang on. Because it doesn't work that way, because there's been years when Leland and Gray and even Twin Valley have been higher than the Burton rate. It's not always, but you know, Leland Gray is the same rate this year as Burton. So if you send your child to, if everybody's sending to Burton, there'd be no cost savings. And we are not here to tell you where to send your child. That's the one thing that's unique about our district, and I think people actually move here for, because they can send their child to the school that best fits them. I know parents that have sent, you know, my wife and I went to Leland and Gray. I consider myself a proud graduate, even if I can't spell and have really awful grammar. My wife went to Brattleboro, and our children went to Wilmington High School, because that's what fit best at the time. We're letting you make that decision. And again, you could vote no because you don't want money to go to Burton or to any private school, but it's not going to change that. It's just going to change the amount that's sent.
Does anyone have a question?
Just a comment.
Your name?
Patty Rapazzo, Wardsboro. I just am in favor of this rate because it allows school choice to be a true choice. If it's the state average, that can mean a several $1,000s difference for families, and then maybe it isn't really a true choice anymore. So just want to mention that.
Does anyone else have a question or comment? All right, seeing none. Shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual tuition rate for approved independent schools at $21,972 for Burton Sending School tuition for the 2025-2026 school year? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. Our
Mark, I'm sorry you didn't get to speak this year.
That's right. Article 8, shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District approve the school board to expend $6,920,549, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The River Valley's Unified School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in a per pupil spending of $17,070.12, which is 16.24% higher than the per pupil education spending for the current year. So would someone like to move that to the floor for me, please?
Randy Johnson,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Shall the voters of the River Valley Unified School District approve the school board to expend $6,928,549, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The River Valley Unified School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil spending of $17,070.12, which is 16.24% higher than per pupil education spending for the current year.
Could I have a second to that, please?
Second it.
So if you go to page 17 to 21 in your book, that's the budget. I don't like the way, but we have to do this. The second paragraph is required. It's actually been required for many years, but these things were supposed to be on ballots so that people understand what they're doing. But because of the complexity of education spending in Vermont, if you approve this article, your taxes aren't going to go up 16.24%. But because we have less students, and we've increased expenses because we have contractual issues such as guaranteed or contracted raises for staff. Oil always seems to go up. Health insurance went up, I think, 18% this year or more. It depends on the plan. And, you know, we still never fully recovered from COVID. We still have a lot of issues. The staff works hard. So if you go to the tax implications, they're on page 24, so that you don't shoot me first. Like I said, you're not going to go up 16%. As a matter of fact, Wardsboro's tax rate will stay the same. Dover's is going to go up a little bit, and not because of the amount of money you're spending. Well, it's going to go up because we're spending more money. Obviously, if we spend less money, it won't go up as high. But what happens too is there's a thing called the common level of appraisal. So each town every year files a grand list. The state of Vermont looks at it and says, no. Dover, you say your grand list is X number of dollars. We think it's quite a bit higher. So your CLA is going to go down. So to make sure that in reality everything is fair across the state, because there's a statewide property tax, the CLA kind of is supposed to level that. But there's always arguments because, you know, did they get all the property right? Is everybody off 25 or 30%? So if you look on that page, there will be a slight increase in Dover, not huge. We're also have some articles in the future where we're asking you to fund some reserve funds, but that's not going to affect the taxes because we want to take that out of other reserve funds. And we're also going to ask you to allow us to withdraw up to a certain amount of money, and that's been figured into that tax rate too. So that's the 16.24% is not a real number. But it would be if we didn't have those other funds to draw from. This budget does have a couple increases. We are hiring a full-time teacher in the Wardsboro building because they are having a new program that we're utilizing, which is called Exploratory Learning, EL. It's a language program, and it's been a lot of work for the staff because it's a whole new program. The staff in the Dover building, I'm told, had a little easier time because it was somewhat similar to the IB learning that they had, but it's still a whole new program for them. There is a pretty much the same amount of students. We do have some the special education or IEPs Those are not in this budget directly. They come to us through the supervisory union because several years ago, legislature passed a law that all special ed goes through the SU, and that was supposed to save money. I forget what act that was, Act 173. I get really confused on acts. I don't know how we can have like 2 or 3 acts that are very close in numbers, even though they're years apart. But Laura will explain that to you later. So we're recommending that you approve this budget. We think it's a very fair budget. We do have some changes that may happen in the future, but we're going to discuss that further down in your agenda tonight. Thank you.
So, Randy, do you have any questions or comments?
So I think maybe just a clarification, and only because maybe this is my first school board meeting, I always go to the select board meetings. Is this going to be, I guess Richie, maybe you just said it, so your dollar amount that you're proposing for your budget, that could potentially change if, say, for example, down in Article 11, we just decide to get rid of the IT program, then that dollar amount that's there will be taken off from that budget if it's not raised somewhere else, right?
Yeah, what you actually do is you're voting to allow us to spend a certain amount of money. Again, we've been running surpluses for the last several years. It doesn't mean that just because you give us that money to spend that we're going to spend it. We have sometimes changed things in midstream. There's been times when we've added staff in the middle of the year because we had an influx of people. Again, we don't know what we guess, our best guess at secondary. You know, a large family with a lot of secondary students moving in or out can change that. One of the first years I was on the Dover board, a family moved out of Dover and we saved $150,000. And the town of Wardsboro called up because they were all up in arms because that came to Wardsboro and they didn't have $150,000 in their budget. But you can't say I'm not going to spend it. So it's up to that. There used to be, when I first started on the school board, if the school board went over what you approved, the school board personally had to make that money up. At least they did away with that. But we don't spend it, Randy, unless we need to.
Yeah, no, just
and if we find out that 100 students move out, we won't spend the money, but we have to file a report with the state by the end of May and tell them what our projected budget is, and that's what they base the tax rates on.
Gotcha, okay. Just, I'm more familiar, like, you know, with how that is, and CDs are a little bit different, so just curious.
Yeah. It just is a difference between select board and school board, which has always kind of baffled my mind a little bit. Select board, you can actually vote a line item down, so you can say, well, I don't like that police chief in Dover from several years ago, so let's vote that line item out.
That's why you retired.
Luckily, the detective was never a line item. But you folks don't get to vote a line item down. You can make a recommendation. So, you know, Randy, you can stand up and say, I'd like to vote out, you know, the new bus or whatever, the bus driver. And so I want to reduce the budget by $30,000. You could vote the $30,000 out, but we don't have to do that. We would just figure out where we would take the $30,000 out. So it's a little confusing, and it's a little different, but it's, I think it's, Randy did it very well.
Thank you.
I'll say it. Cool. Did you have a question, comment? All right, is there any other question or comment from the floor? Can I get your name?
Yep, Kendra Urquhart. So just to make sure I got it right, this is not voting on how you spend the money. It's just saying we trust the information you gave us is you guys just in good faith saying, this is what we're thinking it would be spent on, and we're saying, we trust you guys with up to that amount of money, and you'll use it. Obviously, that's it.
But again,
Yeah.
you always get to stay, you know,
Right.
at election time. And every third year, one of us is up, or two of us are up for election.
Can you tell me how many, Jerry Gillette, can you tell me how many how many students you have in Dover? How many students you have in Wardsboro? Whether you have full-time principals in both schools? And if you have any part-time teachers?
So if you go to page...
It's my understanding it's 42 and 95.
Yeah, if you go to page 22 in your book, these are the estimated students, tuition students. And the next page, at page 23, on the bottom has the elementary students. Well, actually, it's all pre-K through, both Dover and Wardsboro, page 23. On the bottom of page 23 is pre-K 3 through 12. It's a number of students, and up top shows you the tuition rates. And then the staffing, Jerry, is a little harder for me. You gotta
So you
give me
have
1
full-
second.
can I
But
say
yes,
something?
Jerry, we do have 2 full-time principals, 1 in each building, which was a recommendation back from the beginning.
Okay.
And the Dover school has a single staff per grade, and Wardsboro has combined grades, 2 in each building. Plus, this budget, if approved, will allow us to hire an additional full-time teacher to be used as a floater at the discretion of the principal. And I will say, on the administrators, our administrators are really, really good, because what they do is if there's a person out or some staff member needs some help with something, or, has to leave early, they a lot of times cover the classroom. Those of you in Dover, Tracy was cooking for a while. I don't know how good her cooking was, but I didn't hear any deaths or any ambulance calls. I know last year, our principal in Wardsboro was almost a full-time teacher for a few months, 3 or 4 months. So again, it's not that they say, hey, I'm an administrator, I'm gonna sit here, put my legs up and drink coffee all day, or tea. Maybe they drink tea. I don't know, Jerry. I don't have a full count.
You don't know how many teachers?
No, I don't know how many there are, because we have staff in the building that we don't pay for, that comes to us from central office. We have staff that the school hires. We have some staff that works with students outside. We have a guidance counselor, we have a gym, we have a music teacher. I did not prepare for that, and I'm gonna just stumble a little bit and say I really don't know.
Okay, so you have 42 students in Wardsboro in pre-K 3 to 6th grade.
Yeah.
And about 95, 92 in Dover.
That sounds about right.
64.
64.
These are vacant students that work for.
So Laura's referencing the top of page 22. Actually, those are.
No, those are tuition
Those are the tuition students.
See,
So
that's
you
the bottom
subtract
page
that.
23, you have to add the 6 or 7 lines. I'm not that quick with math.
Well, we
been a
also
long-
have students from Jamaica.
It's been a
that are
long
not-
day. We do have some tuition students from Stratton. I know that Jamaica, we also had some tuition, didn't we have a tuition student from Wyndham for a while? I don't know, we have some tuition students, Jerry, and again, I don't have an exact count. We are not a large enough school that we can have a teacher to pupil ratio that's recommended. We just can't do it, it's almost impossible. It's not an easy thing, and it's never been an easy thing in our smaller schools. It's not New York City, unfortunately. But we have asked for administrators to review the staff. 2 years ago, there was a recommendation from the administration that we reduce a full-time teacher at the Dover building. And then we had some issues, so it was recommended that we put that person back on. Again, the board are not education experts, that's why we hired a good superintendent who hires good administrators, who hires good staff.
I think there was somebody back here that you skipped over.
Oh, yes.
Your name?
I just had a quick question. Janet Rivers.
Thank you.
So I wanted to use what Kendra had asked about and ask about something that we're going to be talking about at the next school board meeting, but it's a good place as an example about the summer camp prospects. In budget on page 17, under the line item 41990, local revenue. Last year, we had 22,719,000 coming in from the summer program and the after-school programs for the tuition that the kids pay to do those things. And coming up for the 2025 year and for 2026 projected, it looks like camp isn't in there. At the last meeting, the board discussed pulling from the reserve fund or finding a way to make that happen. And so I was hoping that that was a good example to use for how the budget we're voting on tonight could be shifted but we're using the same funding, we're just approving that it can be used and manipulated a little bit afterwards. Is the summer camp a good example of that?
Yes, it would be if we decide to fund that, yes.
Okay, so I'm bringing that up because if we decide to fund that is fairly important and it's not listed anywhere in the budget. And it's not listed as a consideration either, even though we talked about it at the last meeting, it's just not in here at all. So I just want to make sure.
I just want to address that.
Yes, please.
So we have to prepare an agenda and a budget way before tonight's meeting.
Right.
We have a business manager at Wyndham Central who's done a very good job in her first year, but she did work under the previous one for a couple years. And she comes down and she visits with the superintendent and each building administrator. The building administrators make recommendations on staffing, on expenditures, on programs. They put it together in the budget, they present it to the board gets asked questions, we do in public session. I would say Jerry's been to most of them. A lot of the stuff we actually had before, but she never stumped me with the number of students. So I've had the administrators down, but I didn't have the number of teachers down, and next year I'll know to do that. I always write myself notes. I know at the last meeting that somebody started some kind of chat or something. I don't do Facebook or a lot of chat stuff about the summer program is out. It was brought to the attention of a board member who brought it to the superintendent, and we were going to discuss that in the future. And we have added programs mid-year, we've reduced programs. The thing we can't reduce is we can't reduce certified staff because they have a contract. So we can't say, okay, we're gonna hire these teachers for this program, or, at this building, and then decide, oh, there's not enough students here, we're gonna get rid of a staff member because we have to issue contracts, so we would be breaking the contract. A staff member can decide to leave, and there's nothing to do about that, so we may have to try to hire somebody, so those numbers will vary. That's a really good example of the board's discretion. And again, on this one, if there's a good presentation made and people support it, the board supports it, we can institute a summer program.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions, comments? All right. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District approve the school board to spend $6,920,549, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I'm sorry. Did you have a vote? Okay, I apologize. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I believe the motion is carried. All right, Article 9. Shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District fund its capital reserve funds in the following amounts for the 2025-2026 school year? Capital improvements, 1, buildings, $400,000, transportation, $20,000, with funds coming from the general reserve fund. Would someone like to move that to the floor, please?
Alan Block, I move it. I move that the voters of the River Valley Unified School District fund its capital reserve funds in the following amounts for the 25-26 school year. Capital improvements, buildings, $400,000, transportation, $20,000, with the funds coming from the general reserve fund.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
Second. So if you go to page 25 of your book, you see the reserve funds that are currently on hand. The transportation fund has around $73,400. The building fund has around $126,000, $126,500-ish. We're recommending $400 to go into the building reserve because last year we did half the roof at the Dover School. And if you remember, when Act 60 came in, we had replaced the roof. So Act 60's been around for 25 years. So the addition had just been built, that had a new roof. A year or two later, we re-roofed the rest of the building, and then it's been pretty good until just recently got really bad. We were always kind of hoping that maybe there'd be funds from the state. There used to be money for reserves. We kind of bounce around, would it make sense to do something else? But we got to get the roof on the building. It's almost getting as bad as Wilmington's was towards the end. On the transportation front, Dwight really loves electric vehicles.
Me too.
And Mike and I are a little bit not so liking electric vehicles, we like diesel. But anyways, Dwight spent a lot of time in research, and we actually got a grant to get an electric school bus. It's, we had just bought a bus a little while ago, a diesel bus. It was around 110,000. This was like 340 just for the bus, plus another 15 for the charging station. We got a fast charger. We then had an election nationally, and things got a little funky for a while, and we couldn't get word that yes or no we were getting the money or not. And we just didn't feel like we could stand up in front of you at this meeting and say, we weren't sure, but we spent 340 and ordered the bus anyway, so give us another 300,000 in the transportation. Luckily, just last week, we found out that even though we couldn't call anybody and nobody would respond to us, the money appeared in our checking account. I do have to compliment Dwight. Dwight really fought hard for this. This is Dwight's baby. I will say that Dwight and Greg Frost, the facilities manager, transportation, and a couple bus people drove into my gas station and pulled right up by the front door with that electric bus. So, and I wish I could have gone for the ride, because Mike and I are arguing about the torque and whether or not they're going to plow cars. We do have an electric bus coming, so Dwight, thank you for all your hard work. And because Laura, actually, if you remember back when Obama got elected, there were things called Obama bucks, and Obama was giving out money for school buses to get better buses with better emissions, as long as you got rid of an old bus. And we were getting ready to get rid of old buses. So Laura, we actually applied for 2 buses. We only got 1, but so few people applied, then we reapplied and got the other bus. So really, except in the last 20 some odd years, we as a district have paid maybe for the 1 full bus, which was the last one we just got. The other ones, we all got money. Not only that, but because our other bus was fairly new under Obama, and you had to really destroy the bus, like it went to the highway garage, they cut the frame, they broke the engine, they smashed it. We couldn't even use the seats out of it. But what we were able to do was, our second bus, which wasn't that old and didn't have a lot of mileage, we traded that to West River Transportation for one of his really old buses, and we destroyed that. And then West River gave us free transportation to the firehouse or to the Dover School for several years. So I tell you, between Laura and Dwight, you guys got some really good transportation. So let me just finish real quick. So 20,000 is just to have if we have to replace something in the future. The 400 is pretty much going to go to the roof. What's going to be happening is on the next page for capital stuff. There's a whole list, but we may come back to you with a special meeting to request we spend some more money while it's still ours. Thank you. And we recommend you pass this.
Randy Capitan. Rich, just for a point of reference, they do run a school bus demolition derby down there. You might want to consider that the next time you decide.
Randy, you're going to laugh, but I did consider that. The problem is you had to destroy it, not that way. You had to take pictures of the frame cut and stuff, because I really wanted to do that, because when I worked for Courtney driving buses back in high school, we used to do that out in the gravel pit. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
Just a couple quick things, Alan Block. First, having kind of just started to really pay attention to board meetings around when Randy started this electric bus thing. What, 2 years ago?
Dwight.
Sorry, Dwight, like 2 years ago? Yeah, maybe more?
What's that?
And having gone through the process of seeking these kind of grants, like the amount of time, that 300,000, like if you break it down to hourly, it's still not a very good rate for me. So I want to say that's amazing and totally unexpected that you succeeded beyond all sort of doubt. And then Rich or anyone up there, there was talk during the chaos over this this new education bill and the sort of combat that was going on in Montpelier about the ability of the agency of education to claw back reserves. I never really got an understanding of what the actual proposal was or how high the actual risk of it happening was and what the mechanism was. Can you explain a little bit about that and how this reserve interacts with that possibility if it exists?
You want to do that?
I mean, there was past discussion of it.
Yeah, we that's why I said towards the end of mine when I was speeding up so Randy could talk, we are probably going to come back to you folks with some more spending proposals, because there has been some talk of, and Laura always keeps us informed, that they would try to take some of that back. It looks like we're good for this year, but we want to put the money into our buildings, because much as when we first had Act 60 come down the pike in Dover, we didn't want to give the state any more than we had to, and we want to do the same here. So before Act 60, we spent a pile of money in Dover on bus, and we did the roof, we did everything that we can do. We want to try to do that again. We're going to discuss that later on. But right now, we're not raising any more in taxes. Last year, we asked to raise some of the taxes, and in years past, so we're gonna raise it all here. We're gonna pay attention. We don't think there's a proposal the House sent to the Senate. The Senate has a whole bunch of different ideas. I've heard everything, and Laura can speak to that, what's gonna happen, but we will pay attention to that. We may need to have a special meeting, maybe in the fall, to maybe discuss using some more of the reserve funds to do some other upgrades, but that's for future date.
Thank you.
I would just add the discussion going on around consolidation of districts, which is not buildings, it's boards. Means I expect that is a path that we're going on over multiple years, which means you'll have a board, consolidated boards making bigger decisions over buildings and reserve funds.
So they'd be pooling their reserve funds.
Well, you'll be electing different board and, the priorities of the communities, if there are things that are important to the community, it might be better to think about those sooner in terms of buildings.
And when we created the River Valleys District, Randy and Dwight were both on that committee, and they know some. I don't know if anybody else here was on it. Who?
Mike.
Oh, Mike, is he here? Oh, I miss you.
Hey, buddy.
How are you? One of the things that happened was, we were very fortunate. Dover had a pretty healthy reserve, but Wardsboro had a little healthier reserve when we combined. But it stayed, both of the groups got it. So like Laura said, if they create a Wyndham-Windsor district, and then all our funds and all our assets go into that district, and then, we would have a whole bunch of people.
Bellows Falls would need it all.
The other thing I would just note here, and I won't expand on this, but to the extent that either of these buildings becomes underutilized or unutilized, the community being able to have an asset that can be reused for something of value to maintain vibrancy or to add vibrancy feels really important in this moment as well, to just keep them.
And that's, if you're familiar with Wilmington and Twin Valley, the old Wilmington High School became, I'm gonna get it wrong, the school. But, yeah, and but the roof still leaks. So we're hoping that if something like that were to happen, our roof won't leak.
So, is there anyone else with a question or comment before we move this to vote? All right. So, Article 9, shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District fund its capital reserve funds in the following amounts for the 2025-2026 school year? Capital improvements, number 1, buildings, $400,000. Number 2, transportation, $20,000, with funds coming from the general reserve fund. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Article 10, shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $240,000? Would someone like to move that to the floor, please? Cordelia, why don't you do it?
Oh, my name is hard to spell. Okay, it's Cordelia Grotham. Shall I revote the voters of the River Valley Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $240,000.
Thank you. Lori, you're going to second.
Second, yes.
So Randy asked a good question earlier about taxes and rates and budgets, and I will tell you, I can almost guarantee this, if you vote no on this article, the tax rate will go up a little bit, because we did plan, and the numbers we were showing you involved moving 240,000 or up to 240,000 from general reserves to offset the taxes. And last year we moved 200, Last year, we had a surplus of around 2.25. This year, we're again projecting a surplus of about the same, so it's probably gonna have a net zero effect. But if you don't vote to move it, then we will have to raise taxes for an additional $240,000. So we recommend that you approve this article, and we've been doing this since Act 60, really, with the town of Dover and Wardsboro.
Cordelia, would you like to ask her?
No.
Laura?
No.
All right, is there anyone else who has any questions or would like to make a comment on this before we vote? Seeing no one? Article 10, shall the voters of the River Valleys Unified School District authorize the school board to withdraw money from the reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $240,000? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear no opposition, the motion carries.
Okay, before we get to this article, Article 11 is to do away with ID in Dover. We did this on the last night that we had open to put together the agenda at the request of the staff. So we put it in there, and we were hoping that we would have some time to spend on this, to discuss it. And we really haven't had a lot of time to spend to discuss this. So we're gonna ask that you pass over this article, you don't move it onto the floor. And we are going to, at the reorganizational meeting, put together a study group to look into this. We have met with, Kate and I met with the administrator in Dover for a little bit. We would really like to get input from parents. We'd like to get more input from the staff. We did have a letter signed by all the staff to do away with it. Just because the money's in the budget, again, doesn't mean that we have to spend it. It's something we don't have to spend right off, so we do have a little bit of time. And we'd just like to hear from people about this. So we would ask that you pass over Article 11 and not move it to the floor.
Having said that, it is the will of the voters, so if people here want to vote on that, you can move this to the floor with the board's recommendation that we want.
I'll make a motion to pass over the article.
All right, would someone like to second the motion to pass over? Alan?
Alan.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me, would it be possible for someone to explain IB Focus quickly, or do we want to do that now?
I would prefer not to, because I can't do it real justice.
Okay,
And
that's fine.
I would really like to, we really as a group want to present it properly to you all, so that a good decision can be made. It's not a reactionary decision.
Okay.
IB is International Baccalaureate.
Oh, I'm sorry, is that?
Yeah, I just didn't know what it even was.
IB is International Baccalaureate.
It's on the front
a
page.
curriculum.
Thank you.
I saw another hand.
Yeah, I just have a question then. So, because I've been going to some of your school board meetings with you, and I thought that at one of the meetings there, and I think maybe it was when some of the staff had shown interest. So I guess I'm just kind of curious. I know you said you wanted to look more into it, but I'm guessing if the staff, at that school is under the impression that, one, it's not helping the kids at all, and that the money that you're paying the IB is going, not to help the kids, you're just paying to be recognized as an IB school. So it's not really helping the kids at all. It's almost like, and some people may not know me, but it's just like with the police department, you have all these budgets and stuff, and now, you follow X, Y, and Z, you're an accredited police department. That doesn't mean really anything other than you're just accredited. So I guess my question to you then is if that's the understanding of the staff and the administration, that it doesn't do anything for it, then why do we want to spend the money on it? And again, I don't know a lot to talk about it. I just remember hearing that at that meeting. So if that's the understanding of the administration and staff, then why are we spending whatever money it is to have this program?
So we're not actually.
Let me just a point of order. If the will of the voters is that we not pass over this, we have a motion on the floor to pass over it, we can vote that down and then introduce another motion to vote on it. So your comment is fine, but what we're talking about right at the moment is, are we going to pass over this or not?
Okay, yep.
Okay?
So again, the staff brought this to us the night we had finalized the agenda. So out of respect to the staff, we decided to put it on the agenda. We had hoped to have time to get input, not just from the staff, because the staff isn't the one that instituted IB. It was the voters in Dover who put it together and voted for it and allowed it to come on. We didn't feel it was our position to just do away with it or recommend we do away with that. And we were hoping that we would have time enough, but some other issues came up with the school, some other electric buses, there was a bunch of stuff going on, and we didn't have time to do it justice. So we're asking, doesn't mean we're gonna do it, we're just asking that we put it off, that we do a little bit more research and study and go back to the voters with a better presentation on the pros and cons. The board may recommend that it be done away with too, but again, it's not the board that wants to make the decision. We want the voters to make the decision because they instituted it.
And I thought that's what we were doing tonight, because.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I get what
I
you're
didn't know
saying.
what you said.
Yeah, oh no, I just said that, Richie just said he wanted the voters to vote on it, and I thought that's what this
Well,
meeting's about, so, okay.
it is, except that right now the motion is to pass over.
Yeah, he got to me before I
To
did,
me?
so.
Tennille Cutler, Wardsboro. So I guess my question is kind of two parts in regards to this. One is, would the hope be to collect that information and re-vote on it before the next school year? And B, if we do end up saying we're gonna no longer have Dover be an IB school, like, do we pay annually for that? Like, is it that if we say by August we've decided we're no longer gonna do that, it's been warned, we have the vote, whatever, then does that money then, like, do they change sort of what their focus is, like Wardsboro's doing STEAM?
So I will say that, again, this is one of the reasons why we're asking it to be passed over. There was, if this had been brought to us at the end of last school year or even in September, we would have had some more time. We just don't feel we had enough time to present it and get it out there and have a good discussion about it. I don't know, we were specific, I think you used to go to all those meetings too, when we first started. You know, we felt it was important to have two separate focuses because it's too easy for the state of Vermont to say, Wardsboro and Dover are only 3 miles apart, but as Randy will tell you, we're connected by dirt roads. There's no paved road that connects us. And they can just say, hey, look, we're just gonna make one school. You can't have two schools. But we were hoping that having the two distinct, and IB was already in place at Dover. That's why we didn't want to bring IB to Wardsboro. We wanted a different focus to kind of help protect us if the state wanted to make changes. It's like they're gonna make changes anyways. So again, there's a whole bunch of pros and cons. We spent 4 or 5 years before, well, probably a good 3 years before we actually brought IB to the voters, and we did some parent surveys and we did some studies and we had a lot of discussion. We felt just having it presented at one board meeting, talking about it in an informational meeting, and then having to have a vote here wasn't fair. There may be a lot of people that really support IB, so we just don't know. So that's why we want to have that.
Kendra Urquhart. I was just wondering if you could clarify, Rich, a little bit about when we could expect, like Tennille had mentioned, like when, I think you mentioned like a reorg meeting or something. Is that something that, like, next month? Just because I think that I agree that we should wait and have more discussion and just kind of want to get an idea of like when you guys think that discussion will take
I
place.
think at the reorganization meeting, we're going to discuss it. It's next Monday.
Oh, okay.
And I got you down, and I got Randy down and I got Tennille down for the committee.
Perfect.
See how much fun it is to raise your hand?
No, please raise your hand, and you don't have to serve on the committee, but we will be looking for members of the public, both Dover and Wardsboro, to help us.
Just a question,
Could you
is
say
there,
your name, please?
Amanda Jortson,
Thank you.
is an IB coordinator position worked into the current budget and is it
Yes.
staffed?
Yeah,
It is
there's-
currently staffed.
And so some of the expenses are the coordinators we have to hire. Some of them are, we pay a fee to the IB program, we have a special computer. We're okay for a little while because we won't have to do a whole lot of stuff. So we could say, we could have a vote in September, October, and do away with it and just not pay the bills. We will definitely make sure the contracts that get issued to the IB coordinator state that if we decide to do away with the IB program, that they're not gonna get that stipend anymore. But we just didn't have time. And, you know, we did put it on the warning because the staff asked, and we respect the staff, but I was hoping that we could have more time. We had a school vacation, we had some lousy weather, we had some.
I just suspect the staff is now feeling how challenging it might be to implement EL with the IB framework at this point in the school year is my suspicion.
We've already instituted the EL,
No,
it
I know.
started a couple of years ago. IB has been there, most of the staff has already been trained in IB. We did have the administrators tell us that the Dover staff had a little easier time with EL because its framework is very similar to IB. The problem with there's some problems because there's no other IB schools around, but there's a lot of EL schools around. So there's a whole bunch of issues we need to discuss. And we're just hoping that we get some input from the public.
Yeah, I do. So, I would just add that I think it's a nice decision to table this and move over it. The voters in Dover spent a significant amount of time considering this, making investments. The staff made significant time investments in this, and I think what Rich and the board are asking for is a thoughtfulness around the process, and not just kind of a quick decision. So I think we are asking for a thoughtfulness around the process, which seems wise given the significant time and money investment that has gone into this.
Amanda, could you tell me your last name?
Yeah, Georgeson, Georgeson. ESON.
ESON. And one more thing I will relate, at the election in Dover yesterday, the number one topic brought up regarding school and this meeting by parents and others who came to vote was the IB question. There's a lot of concern out there. Just pass that.
Who's there?
Bryn Tucker, Dover. I just had a clarifying question about the process. So if we vote to pass over tonight, am I understanding correctly that there will, at whatever point the committee determines a way forward, there will be another public vote that is warned to make that final decision?
That's our intent, is to ask the public to vote on it. So we may do it as a ballot vote so that we don't have to have a meeting. We may have a special meeting so that she can have moderate another meeting. Yeah, to be here. Again, we're not sure. We want some more input. All we had was input from the teachers and the staff at the Dover building. We really didn't get a lot of other input, and we really felt that was important.
Are there any other questions, comments? All right, so the motion that we are voting on is, shall the voters of the River Valley's Unified School District pass over the vote on Article 11 for stopping funding the IB focus in the Dover building? So a yay vote is we are passing over that. A nay vote is we are not passing over. All right? So all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
No.
Nay. All right, it appears that the ayes have it. The motion has been passed over. All right, Article 12. Any other business that may legally be addressed / open discussion for informational purposes. We cannot vote on anything binding in this, but we can have discussion. In light of declining enrollment, River Valley's Unified School District will be discussing in the coming year for the next budget cycle, so for not this budget, the next one, a discussion on consolidating none, some, or all of the grades into one building, discussion on staffing for the future, and any other topics that the voters would like to recommend we discuss. So
I want to just tell you, I'm going to celebrate my 40th wedding anniversary this year. My wife is going to celebrate her 40th wedding anniversary. But I will tell you, for the last 20 plus years, I spent more Monday nights with Laura Sophia than I have with my wife. And sometimes it's felt like we were married. Yeah, because before Laura got on the board, this is my real work wife, this is my school work wife. But anyways, Laura was covering the Dover School Board for a couple of years as an employee of the Deerfield Valley News. We had an opening, a board member moved, so he had to resign. And we actually, Laura had some interest, and we asked her, if you want, put your name in, we get to go to the select board and ask, that's how old it was. to appoint you to the school board. For some reason, the select board did that. And Laura was very involved with some veteran groups and some military groups because almost her entire family is involved in the military. And she was working and she had kids and she had all this other unimportant stuff going on. But she really felt the school board was going to be important. We've been so fortunate to have her there. She's been a great, her and I don't agree on everything, but we can have a really good discussion, we can have a good argument, and we can still leave as friends. It's kind of like town meeting and school board meetings. So Laura, this will be her last meeting with us as a school board member. We have a new school board member in the back who's going to join us at our reorganizational meeting. I would like to everybody just give Laura a standing ovation. She has worked hard. I want to do that before somebody else stole my thunder. But I also want to say that when, I've been chairman of Wyndham Central for 2 different terms, but almost 25 years there. And I used to say we are the most fortunate supervisory union in the entire district because we had Carolyn Partridge from Wyndham on the super board. We had Emily Long, who's still a legislator, on the West Leland Great Board, and we had Laura. And I gotta tell you, we had so much pull-up in Montpelier, believe it or not. We got things that, we knew what was going on. Laura promises to keep doing that. She does represent our 2 towns, which is really nice. And we really appreciate her. We know we're not gonna lose her. But if you ever have any concerns, Laura's there for you. You call her when something's going on at the school and I need a quick answer, I call Laura. She'll walk out of sessions. And so, she's been really good for us. So thank you, Laura. We love you.
Thank you for keeping me on the board, and thank you for running. So important to have folks step forward, and public education is the #1 most important investment we make in the future of our communities. So keep coming and showing to the schools, and I will be here. I care deeply.
And I'm gonna step out of line a little bit and just say Laura is probably the most dedicated professor I know. And I really, I cherish our friendship and I appreciate everything she's done. So, thank you.
And your weekly reports are fantastic.
So, to move back to the Article 12, which is the non-binding discussions. Some topics that have been suggested are discussing consolidating none, some, or all of the grades in one building, discussing staffing for the future, and any other topics. So would anyone like to open a discussion on any of those items, offer an opinion?
Okay, so I want to thank the board for agreeing to put this on, and I think it's really important for our communities to think about how to preserve the strongest educational system that we can in our 2 communities. What that looks like with our buildings, what that looks like with our staff. I almost, for the first time, did not vote for our budget this year. We have so much stress, and we're losing students. We've got a lot of costs that we have added during COVID that we have not kind of rolled back. The person that I live with and love is not very happy about the property tax issue, and it's going up this year. And I think we have to maintain a very strong public presence, and I think we can't do things the same way in doing that. We have 1 school building here in which these are all of our kids. 1 school building, every classroom is combined. And they have STEAM. We have another school building where every classroom is not combined. And we have IB. We're talking about making changes there. We've got some facilities issues. We've got some facilities issues here. And so I think it's really important that the board has pretty big discussions, considering also the state level discussions. And so what is the strongest position that we can move ourselves into here, with the buildings that we have, with the staff that we have, with the funds that we have, and with the experience that we have. And so I would just encourage everyone to really be brave. Think about, what we can do to have the strongest position, and we really cannot stay the same. We cannot stay the same. We've got to figure out how to evolve and reduce some of our expenses and increase our opportunity. We're losing staff, students. That's it. Thank you to the board for putting this on. It's the reason that I voted for the budget this year.
And we wanted to put it in there because we wanted people to think about it, and again, it's not a decision, we don't expect you to vote something tonight. But when we first formed the district, we had meetings, we talked about forming one building, we talked about primary, and we've bounced around some ideas.
Explain primary.
We consider the primary the first, second, third, kindergarten, first, second, third, and then the elder students 4, 5, and 6. We talked maybe we could combine 4, 5, and 6 because our numbers are declining. Sometimes it's hard to find staff. So again, we didn't want to come to you all of a sudden and say, hey, this budget's closing a building, or this budget is doing away with staff in a building. We thought it would be good, again, instead of making a knee jerk and a monetary decision, that we come to you and we plan again at the reorganizational meeting to maybe have some committees to look into this. We've done a lot, Dover has and Wardsboro has, to make it as fair as we can. We went out of our way because when the population changed at the last census, according to the Articles of Agreement, we were supposed to go to 4 Dover members to 2 Wardsboro members, but we didn't want to make it seem like Dover was taking things over. So, we were able to rearrange our Articles of Agreement to allow for combined voting, where now, remember when we first formed, only people in Dover voted for the Dover one. Now you all vote, so that made us more like one big district versus 2 separate schools into one. Jerry every year comes and asks us about administrators and staff, and she asked about administrators, staff she threw me on this year. So we want some thoughts from you folks, and again, it's not something tonight, but we want to definitely form some discussion groups and have some people, both administrators, staff, parents, community members. As Laura said, Laura and I don't have kids in the building, but we all pay taxes, People were saying that to us when we had kids, so we want input from the taxpayers, and we want to really have a thoughtful discussion, and we really need some volunteers, and we need people from both towns, both Wardsboro and Dover, and we don't want anything to be a takeover. We want to come to something that we all agree to, and it may only last for a few years, who knows, but we think we can do a lot more, and it's a good conversation to have, and we're hoping that a lot of people join us.
Would anyone like to bring up a topic, or bring up any comments on these topics, or suggest another topic that should be discussed?
Tennille, sorry. So this is going to be the discussion in the coming school board meetings? Is that what this is saying? We're not actually sussing this out now, right? Because it's late. But you're letting us know that this is something you guys are actively talking about in these every other Monday meetings?
The board really felt that, yes, these are some important topics, and we really want to, this is the biggest group we ever get, is at this meeting versus school board meetings, unless we try to close a building or cancel transportation or run sports, or build a cell tower on school property. So, but we're hoping to have people involved and have you folks go out and tell 5 of your friends and, hopefully get input, so it's not just us making a decision in a limited group of people. We're hoping to get a widespread opinion and thoughts.
Thank you.
Well, just sort of a general comment, having lived in both Dover and Wardsboro, and having worked on various programs in both schools, what I've seen is that more and more of these 2 towns, which used to be 1 town, by the way, have really elevated the level of education. And the people who have been moving into our communities are interested in that higher level of education. not all the communities around us are. So a major concern as you get into these larger conglomerations, that we don't lose track of that higher level of education that we want, and my sense is that most of us want for our kids. And that's been hard fought and difficult, and I won't go into long stories about it, but I mean, I remember when things weren't quite that way. And a lot of work's been done, and you guys are all part of that. I'm so appreciative of what you've been doing. I don't want to lose that in the process of, and having come from an area, you know, most of the United States has had these huge consolidated school districts for years. And because of our history, that didn't happen here. I don't want us to lose that sense of higher level in the process of this other thing that's bigger than all of us put together.
Were there any other comments, suggestions, requests?
Can I do the last question? Okay. Hey, the conversation came up. I got very nervous. I called Andy up and I called the superintendent up and I said, hey, I haven't got my booklet yet. I get mail in both Eastover and Westover, so did these not go out? How are we going to have our informational meeting without the booklets? And I got really nervous, and then I went to the post office and I saw Brenda and I said, Brenda, did those booklets go out? She said, yeah, they went out last week. She said we put out, like 350 and 298 of them wound up in the trash and recycling. And so I mentioned that to Andy, and Andy said, yeah, that's why at Dover we don't mail out the town reports anymore, because it's a lot of money. It's about $5,000 or $6,000 to put these together, mail them out, get them out. Is there any thought, opinion about these being mailed? We mail them to the taxpayers. We don't mail, we mail them to the voter checklist. We don't mail them to taxpayers. So still a lot of them went in the trash. And strangely, I didn't get one, but my daughter did. So
same here.
Luckily, I have hers. So I don't know if maybe somebody just pulled our names then, Mark, or maybe we're not on the voter checklist anymore. But do you all have any thoughts, especially in Wardsboro? Because I don't know how many of them wound up in the recycling or trash at Wardsboro. But we also have a big boxes of them there if you want to bring an extra one home for your collection.
In Dover, we voted not to mail town reports out because of the waste at the post office. I wasn't in favor of that, but that's what Dover voted to do. And it is awfully wasteful. But by mailing them to all voters, all households receive them, and my guess would be, Richie, that the supervisory union sent one booklet to an address, only one to an address, and eliminated the others at that address, and they just happened to send it to your daughter. But I just wanted to clarify that I'm not necessarily in favor of eliminating mailing these reports to everybody. I kind of actually think it's a good idea, because then you're guaranteed to have that one extra notice and all of the information at your fingertips to come to the meeting and participate.
I would agree, and at a minimum, would hope that you would send out postcards at a meeting saying it's.
And that was an option somebody had mentioned too, that they're now available. Over there.
Yes.
Sorry, Jen Finaldi. I just want to say that this was the first year you mailed them out in Wardsboro, and it was, no? I don't remember getting them in the mail before. Really? Well, for the first, to me, that's good. All the voters should receive it. But then, again, being at the school and seeing how much it cost, and as we're sitting here talking about cost, I was like, oh, so maybe that's what, I'm torn. Because one year, we didn't even have them at the meeting, right? So I definitely feel mailing them is good. It was a good thing, but it does cost them.
So the first year, I actually went through the checklist, like Andy said, and we made them, and I put the labels on them because the company wouldn't do that. And a couple of years, we mailed almost all of them. We only had 4 or 5 extras, and then people came to the meeting. So that was one year somebody said to me, where are they? And said, they all got mailed. Well, I didn't bring mine, don't you have an extra? So again, that was the postcard idea. So it's all over the place, and we just thought it would be a good thing to talk about.
I mean, just from a cost standpoint, a postcard with a prominent and easy to use link, everybody can use it these days. Everybody.
Not me.
Come on. Never looked at a website before, I don't believe it. Don't believe it.
He has someone do that for him.
You know, I'm a print guy, so the more you can mail, the better. But actually, I think the way you look at it is, in the big picture of how much we just voted to spend, what's a couple $1,000? I mean, really, right? So I agree with Andy.
0.03%.
Thanks, Cordelia Rothway. You can have a postcard with a QR code and a big sign saying, if you would like a hard copy, you can come at blah, blah, blah town hall. And then you have less postage waste. You've got hard copy for people that actually come to the meeting. Maybe you don't print as many. But for the people that can't do a QR code, I think it's important to have something.
Yeah. I also felt like it was great to get the mailing right at my house. I spent a long time reading through it. It was really informative, and honestly, it's why I'm here tonight, to have that received. I understand too, it's a big cost, but I think it was great. One suggestion as a resident, I would have also loved to see what the results of our investments are in terms of a little blurb about what is the academic achievement of our schools, how are we doing, what are the state and benchmark results, and so that would just be a suggestion for the future in that information.
You're asking for that to be included in the school report?
Yeah, potentially in the principal's letters.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good idea.
I was just gonna say, Liz Lazzarella. I appreciated getting it in the mail, however, I didn't have time to look at it before coming here tonight. Do you strategically send it very close to the meeting day so that people don't forget about it? Or is there a way to do it a little bit sooner, or does that not make sense?
Yeah, we have to approve, Andy will correct me, we have to vote on the agenda at a board meeting, then we all have to sign it, we have to get it to Andy, Andy has to record it, then we send it to get printed. And I think it has to be a minimum of 30 days?
So,
March 27th, we put it together.
yeah, for the posting, it's 30 days. For the mailing of the reports, though, it's less.
10 days before the meeting.
Pardon?
10 days before the meeting, it has to be mailed out.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
And again, though, so it's, and again, like we said earlier in that other article, we got that, you know, just before we were putting this together, and then we got how to get it out. So it's strategically that as soon as we get the warning done and everything together, and we give it to the SU puts it together and sends it to the printer, and then the printer prints it and gets it out.
Perfect, that totally answers my question. I figured there was a timeline there somewhere, but I just didn't know what it was.
You know, one of the things, we have a meeting later, we actually had a letter, or somebody request us, like, we used to meet at town meeting day when we were independent schools, different schools, you know, we'd have the town meeting, school district meeting. Back in the first year of COVID, if we'd had to put our warning together so we could present to you folks at town meeting, our tax rate would have probably doubled, because that's what all the estimates were showing. By waiting later in the season to do it, the legislature kind of we've got a good feel for where they're at. It gives us some time to get our budget numbers together. All the tuition numbers come in, the insurance numbers come in. So it allows us to give you a more accurate tax guesstimate, and but it also creates some timeline issues too. And there's no perfect date. You can't find it. We can't even as 6 board members, you know, all agree on the best date to do certain things. So there's some difficulties in all that, and it's not an easy task, but we try to get them out as quick as we can after everything's done, so you have them. And they are always available online. I know the SU has You can actually go in the test scores that you were asking about, those are available online. I can't find it for you, but maybe Alan could. So there's a lot of stuff out there too, all in addition to this report.
Are there any other questions, comments? Are you just hot or?
Yes.
Oh, all right. So, seeing no other questions, comments, or hands raised, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson. And Jerry seconds, and we don't have to vote on that, we're just done. Thank you all very much.